Welcome, friends, to Farm Fresh Designs 59. I am so excited today. I am doing a collaboration with Johni from Carolina's Cottage. And so I can't wait to show you what I've made. And also, after this video, I want you to make sure that you go to her channel and check her out and watch her video. And of course, subscribe to her channel. You will just love what she makes. So on my first project, I'm actually recreating something that I found on Wayfair. And it was 3 panels, and they were selling it for over $500. So I decided I was going to recreate it. So this is just a scrap board, and I'm starting it off by taking some Waverly black paint, chalk paint, and I'm just watering it down, and I'm just putting a wash all over it, and I'm just kind of putting it on here and there. I do want to make sure that I put just a little more around the edges of it. So right now it looks pretty nasty, okay? So then what I do is now I take some Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint, and now I'm just dry brushing that over it, and it really looks awful at this point. And I know you're thinking, Myra, what are you doing? This just looks awful right now. So I hope that you will like it when you see the final result. Okay, so now I come back with my final coat of paint, and it is Dixie Belle Haint Blue. And it takes me a while to decide how much blue paint I want on this, but I want a little bit of that black showing through, and I want a little bit of that white showing through, because I want it to look like an old board. And so I just kind of play around with it until I'm happy with the result. So once I'm happy with all of the blue paint on it, with just those little extra touches showing, now I'm going to start adding some clay molds. And I start off by using the IOD Trimmings I mold. And I'm using this one piece on the edge. And the reason I'm using it is because it has a way that it connects, and it makes it really easy to connect. So if you make more than one piece, then you take that second piece and kind of push it right into that first piece, and it just is very seamless. So I start by putting cornstarch in my mold, and then I use Doss air dry clay, and then I make 6 pieces of that one trim. So I'm going all the way around the 2 sides of that board, and I'm measuring, I think it was 3/4 of an inch away from the edge. And then I'm putting all those molds on with Titebond Thick and Quick. So if you'll watch, so one piece is kind of like cut in at the back, and then at the other end, it's kind of pointed. So when you connect that second piece, you put that second piece, which kind of cuts in right up to the point of that other piece. And then what I like to do is just kind of rub my fingers across it just a little bit without messing up the detail, and it just blends that clay together. And then when I get to that third piece, it's going to be a little bit too long, so I just have an old credit card that I just kind of snip it off where I don't need it anymore. Now, I have already worked out the design for this piece, and so I already know what I'm going to be adding to it as I finish up with these 2 pieces that come down either side of it. Because now I'm going to be putting pieces or different molds up at the top that are very ornate, and then I'm going to be putting something at the bottom that's just a little bit simpler, but, well, not a lot. And that's what it looks like. So now I'm going to be starting out next with all of my, what I like to call my fancy molds, and I'm using the IOD Classic Elements. And so I'm starting out by using the really large mold, and it kind of swirls down to the front, and then it has some little side pieces. So I put cornstarch in my mold, and then I just take my time with my Doss air dry clay and just use my thumb or my forefinger to kind of push on those edges, because the IOD molds have like a little micro rim around it. So that helps a whole bunch. And then when I kind of get all of that extra clay off, then I just like to take an old credit card or an old gift card and just run it over the edge and smooth it out. But this is the largest piece on this particular mold, and I just think it's so pretty. And because this is such a large mold, I like to use this little silver thing that you can find in the kitchen section, and it's called a bench scraper, and that just helps me to flip these molds over real easy so that they won't fall apart when I'm turning them. And then I once again use my Titebond Thick and Quick, and if you've watched my channel, you know that I do not like glue on my fingers. I just can't stand it. So I just use this little silicone stick to push it out to the edges. Now I'm still going to get glue on my fingers, but it's not quite as bad. And then I just lay it on there, get it to the place I want. And you're going to see me kind of tapping around the edges, and that's just to push that clay down. But I'm not messing with any of the detail. It's just right around the edges. And then I make another piece from that same mold. Now this is late at night, so I'm going to stop for the night, but I want to go ahead, and I like to paint my molds probably after about 10 or 15 minutes after they've set up, and that helps with the cracking. And so I'm using Dixie Belle, and it's called Fluff, so it's not a white and it's not a cream, it's kind of in between. And I just am using a really small brush, and I'm using a really soft bristle so it won't mess up any of the details. And I just take my time going all the way around and putting paint on all of those pieces. And it really, really does help with the cracking. Okay, so the next morning I'm up and I'm at it again, and I'm using another really large piece from the Classic Elements. And if you'll look on my table, you'll see that there are two really large parentheses that I'm using right now, and I'll use those around the edges. And then I'm going to put the big one that's pointed right in the middle of that. And then there was one that I made that looks kind of like a shell, but after I make it and I set it up on it, I realize it's just too big for that one area. So I end up coming up with something else a little bit later. But I'm wanting to connect all of these pieces based on what I saw from that Wayfair panel that was so expensive. So since that shell piece was just a little bit too big, I went back to that same mold, and I found another little piece that was going to fit in there just right, because I didn't want to have too much space in between these different little loops and things. And I've also put my Titebond Thick and Quick in just a smaller bottle because I'm looking for one of those little condiment bottles, and my Dollar Tree just did not have one. So this was just something to have extra. Now I'm going to switch over to some Redesign molds because I need something that's like a little swag, but I need it to be just a little bit skinnier because as that design comes all the way down, I need it to kind of thin out. And this particular mold is really old, and I think it's called Garland Swags. So I'm going to put that kind of coming down from that point. I'm going to kind of circle it around. And once again, that little scraper really comes in handy when it comes to the longer pieces. And then I also use a little piece from the Redesign Fleur-de-lis because it has a really small fleur-de-lis in it. So I make one of those for down at the bottom. I make another one to put in that little center right there. And then I make one more to put up toward the top because I want it to look like it all matches, even though I've just taken different molds and just kind of played with them around, but it just all works at the very end. So when I finish with everything up at the top, then I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to once again do that really large piece that I put on in the beginning. But I don't want to finish the bottom up really super fancy because I want all of that detail to just be at the top. And then I add some little of the little molds from the classic elements, and they look like little parentheses, and it connects the side pieces with the end pieces. And then when all of that is on, I paint it with the Dixie Belle Fluff white paint, and then when that's dry, I go back with gold gilding wax all over it. And I don't go super heavy, but just enough for that detail to come out. And if you've watched my channel before, you know that I love using molds because I just think they add so much to a piece. So this might not be something that you want to make, but I want to inspire you to, when you see things online, you can make them for super cheap. And then I go back over it with some black ink, and I just kind of go all around the edges, just to kind of give it a little bit of darkness, just to kind of finish it all off. And I am so in love with this piece. And what I really like is that I found something online that was super expensive, and I just made it for pennies compared to what they were charging. So I hope you like this. So if you're enjoying the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a member, and become part of our family. Now, my next project is really super easy, and I'm painting it with Rust-Oleum Chiffon Cream. And this time I'm going to be using a stamp. And this is the IOD Queen Bee. And so the design in the middle is a French design. And then on the same stamp set, it's got some laurel leaves. And so I'm just kind of placing them around this tray to try to figure out where I'm going to put them. So this time I'm using Dixie Belle China Blue ink. And I put that stamp on my little thin mount and put my ink on it. And then I lay it in the center. And then I'm using a little tool that I got off of Amazon, and I'll make sure to share that link. And then that way it just kind of presses it down, and it's super easy. And I actually found this by watching Victoria Conhurst on Ode to Ooh La La. She used that, and I just think it's a really cool tool to have. And then I stamp these particular laurel leaves, and I don't put them on a thin mount because I'm going around like that oval piece, and it's going to be really hard to have it on a thin mount without it kind of butting up against the edges of that tray. So I'm just kind of holding it with my finger very carefully before I lay it down. And then I'm going to put those two pieces up at the top, and then I'll go down at the bottom, and I'll do those same pieces down at the bottom, and they will connect on the sides, but up at the top and up at the bottom there's one little stamp that's round that has a floral design on it, and I'm going to put that in the middle. And I don't normally use my stamps without putting a thin mount on it, but as I've watched Johni from Carolina Cottage, she's really great at this, and she has a really steady hand. And so I thought, I'm going to try this. And because I'm used to using thin mounts, but it worked really well. But it also means just take your time. But guess what? If you mess up, just paint over it and you can start again. It's super easy. And I love the color of this China Blue ink. Now, when I put that little round piece on, it's going to kind of ink over the edges of that laurel wreath, but I don't care. It's fine. I just think I really like the way that it connects all of those pieces. And then I've got like a little makeup brush, and I kind of push it into that blue ink pad, and I go all around the edges with that, just to kind of finish off the trim. And I didn't put any gold gilding wax on it. I just used the blue ink this time. Now you'll notice in just a minute that there is a little crack on the inside of this tray around the edges. And when I thrifted this tray, I saw that little crack in it. But I love the shape of it. And so that's why I went on decided to get it. And because it's just for me, I was totally okay with that crack in it. So what do you think about this piece? So my last piece is once again going to be fairly easy, and this is one of those little flat canvases that you can get from the Dollar Tree. And I painted it with the Dixie Belle Fluff paint, and this time I'm using the lattice piece from the IOD Veranda stamp. And I start by actually placing it in the middle because I want that lattice work to be even on the edges. And I use the China Blue ink, and once again I use that tool. And if you keep your hand on that stamp, just to kind of make sure you did it right, and push it down on one side and pull it up real easy, then you can check your work. And then I go back and I finish on either edge with that Veranda stamp. And it really is easy to match up. And I love this new stamp that they're using. And I actually use a little silicone mat on my desk because it's so easy to clean up. So now this is a frame made by Redesign with Prima, and it's called Finley. And it's a really large frame, and I already had it made with resin, and I painted it with the Dixie Belle Fluff and with the gold gilding wax. But this was actually in my stash. So I just take an old cereal box and cut the shape of it, and I paint it with the Dixie Belle Fluff, and then I'm going to be putting a piece of decoupage paper on it, and it's called Rose Cluster, and I always get my decoupage paper from Decoupage Central, and I'll make sure to put that in the description box below. So I'm just going to tear off the one that I want. Now, when you use decoupage paper or rice paper, sometimes there's going to be little fibers in it, and sometimes it just takes a little pair of scissors to just cut that fiber, and then to continue to tear it. And then I'm just putting my Mod Podge on the back, and then as I put it on top of that little piece of cardboard, I just kind of have to wiggle it around until I'm really happy with the placement of it. And when I lay it down, then I push that down just a little bit, and I'm going to use some cellophane wrap to push that down with. And then I go back and finish it off with the Mod Podge and just brush that on, and then lay that decoupage paper down. And then because this is just a piece of cardboard, I don't really need to wait and sand down the edges because it's also going to be back behind this frame. So I just use a pair of scissors and I just trim off the edges. And then this time I use my Titebond Thick and Quick to put that little piece of cardboard down that has the decoupage paper on it. And to make sure that it sets up and it does really well, then after I get it on there, then I lay this on some parchment paper, just in case there's some glue that kind of squirts out up underneath, and then I put a heavy book on it to kind of make sure that cardboard connects with that resin really well. When it's all dry, then I'm just using my Titebond Thick and Quick, and I'm going to put this on top of that canvas piece. And I'm just trying to measure it and make sure it's okay. Now, this is just an old frame that I had thrifted, and it was the inside of a really large frame. So I took it out and I painted it with the Dixie Belle fluff and did the gold trim around it. And then I added some of the fleur-de-lis molds from the IOD fleur-de-lis in the corners to just kind of make it all look like it goes together. So tell me, what do you think about this? I love this piece, and I love this decoupage paper. And I had saw Johni add different molds to a frame that already had a lot of detail on it. So when the little bitty design on the frame looked like a fleur-de-lis, I thought, you know what, I'm going to pull out that mold and just add an extra fleur-de-lis to either corner of it, just to make it just a little bit more fancy. So friends, we are at the end of the video today. First of all, in the comments below, let me know what was your favorite. And also make sure when this video is over, you go to Carolina's Cottage and watch her video. And I know you're going to just love her if you have not already subscribed, and you're just going to love the pieces that she does. She's so talented and she's such a sweet lady. And so I know that you will enjoy her video. Now this video is at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so her video will come out at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But she lives in Texas. So if you were in Texas, then it will be an hour earlier. But make sure to go to her video and watch it, because I know you'll just love everything she does. And also, go back and watch her older videos. She is so very talented, and I'm just so thankful that she and I have become friends just because of YouTube. And if I haven't told you lately, I want to let you know I appreciate your support so much. My channel has grown so much this past year, and it is all because of you. So thank you so much for watching my videos, and for those of you who have subscribed to my channel recently, thank you so much, and I am so grateful that you have decided to be on this journey with me. So here is another video that Johni did, and you make sure you watch this one as well. Also, just a reminder to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in my next video. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you, friends.